guys, Erin with Exit here with every real estate agent's best friend, the real estate appraiser. This is Galen Bricker, and he is a real estate appraiser here in Franklin County, and he's here today to talk to us a little bit about the appraisal process and answer some very good questions, give you some really good information about appraisals. So thank you for coming today, Galen. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Why is it important to have an appraisal?
Well, as you know, buying or selling a house is very emotional for both the buyer and seller. Obviously the seller wants to get as much money out of the house as they can get, and the buyer wants to pay as little for the house as they want. So it's good to have a third party, totally independent, come in, and it makes no difference to me if the house appraises for $50,000 or $500,000. My job is to come in and just give you what the market is reflecting that the house is worth.
Right. Okay. Now there's some popular loans out there right now. FHA, that's been around for a while, but USDA, we're starting to see a lot of USDA loans out there. And how do those loans differ? How does your job differ with those loans compared to a conventional loan? Like if you go out to a house that's going to be having a USDA FHA loan, what are you looking for?
Okay. Fortunately, USDA and FHA are pretty similar. They have pretty much the same guidelines. A lot of things that we look for are safety issues, security issues, and soundness issues. Basically, security, we just want to make sure the doors are working properly, the windows are working properly, that they lock properly. We want to make sure the people inside that live there are going to be safe. The number one thing that we see that we look for are like peeling paint, especially in older homes. Peeling paint is a big issue.
Very common.
It is. And one place a lot of people don't think to look for is in the windows, between the storm window and the regular window.
Oh.
We see a lot of peeling paint in that area. As the windows slide up and down, a lot of peeling paint falls down, leaves for a possibility of a 3-year-old to stick their fingers in there and start eating it. And they just want to make sure that's taken care of. So I see that a lot. That's probably the number one thing in older homes particularly that we see. But even in newer homes, if there's peeling paint or wood that's not painted, except for treated wood, pressure treated wood, that does need to be painted even in newer homes. That's the biggest thing. Another thing I see a lot of times, water heaters. There's a pressure relief valve on there that has to have a pipe leading to the floor within 6 inches of the floor.
Okay.
Probably about 30 or 40% of the homes that I walk into don't have them.
Why is that important?
It's a big safety issue. Basically, think of your water heater as a pressure cooker. If it's regulated, but if the regulator would fail, then the pressure relief valve would relieve the pressure, and you want that going to the floor and not coming straight out to you or towards somebody's face.
It's very hot water.
It's very hot water. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's very good. Good point.
Yeah, so that's a big thing, and plumbers are supposed to do that by code, but a lot of times, unfortunately, you still don't see that being done. Another thing we see a fair amount of times are the garage door openers with automatic garage door openers on them. When they close, you're supposed to be able to hold your hand out, and as the door comes down and touches your hand, it shouldn't take too much pressure to reverse. Even if they have the laser going across, we can't count on them. It has to go by pressure. Okay. The way I usually describe it, imagine a 2-year-old standing there. How much pressure do you want to apply on them before it reverses?
Wow.
Obviously not too much.
Yeah.
So you should be able to hold your hand out and pretty easily have it reverse back up.
Okay.
So a lot of times you see that, and there's just too much pressure there.
Right.
So you want to be careful of that.
Yeah.
They are probably 3 of the biggest things that we see.
That you're looking for.
That we're looking for, yes.
And these are the most common repairs you're sending back.
They're the most common that I'm seeing. Handrails are still a big issue. They're not as required, but it's a real gray area.
Yeah.
so most appraisers anymore still require them because we don't want to be liable if somebody falls down the stairs, they didn't have a handrail, then they come back and sue the appraiser because they didn't require it to be on there. So a lot of times we still require them to be on. A new interesting thing that I'm seeing more and more now on older homes are in the attic. If they have a walk-up attic with flooring on there, but there's no railing around the opening to the stairs.
Oh yeah, so somebody could fall right
somebody
down
could fall.
stairs.
Yeah, if they're backing up, moving boxes around or something, they could step down and fall, 8 feet down to the bottom there.
Yeah.
So that's another issue that we're seeing a fair amount now.
Okay.
So they're probably the biggest things that I've been noticing in homes recently.
Well, those are very very good tips. Another thing with the FHA and the USDA, we're seeing a lot of seller concessions,
Yes.
where the buyer asks the seller to pay a certain percentage towards their closing costs. Some call it seller help, seller concessions. How does that affect the appraisal?
Typically, we see that anymore. The vast majority of transactions that we see have that, and if it's less than 6%, we don't bother making an adjustment in the appraisal for that. We figure that's just kind of part of the relationship between the buyer and seller and just the whole transaction there. So we don't make an adjustment for that. At least most appraisers don't. Some I believe do, and we have to go by what the market is doing, and there's some different interpretations. Again, appraiser, there's differences in appraisers and how we do things. We try to do as much the same as we can, but we're all people. We have different ideas on how things should be done, and
Absolutely.
even though we try to follow the same guidelines, the guidelines aren't 100% clear on some of this.
Absolutely.
So that's one area where I respect some other appraisers that do it, and we've discussed it, and we just have differences of opinion on why you do or why you don't.
Okay. Now, we're discussing a lot about you being hired to perform appraisers for loans.
Yes.
But you also do appraisals, for sellers. Maybe
Yes.
they hire you to see where they should list at, or maybe they're getting a home equity loan or something like that, and they want to find out where they are.
Sure.
What are some of the best improvements someone can do to their home to get the most value back?
Okay. Well, one of the easiest ones you could do is just have the house clean. If an appraiser can't see the walls because there's so much stuff around, or can't see the floors because it's just full of stuff, or you have to walk over everything to get to the different rooms, it makes it really difficult to really see what the house itself looks like. We try to envision it as if it's empty,
Right.
but if it's so full, it's hard to do.
So that's going to ding their value.
It will a little bit, just because we really don't know. We can't see it well enough to really know how good the condition of everything is. Another thing, obviously the things that you hear online all the time or on TV all the time are kitchens and bathrooms, and it's so true. Somebody wants a nice clean kitchen, a nice clean bathroom. They want it to be upscale, depending on the house, the grade of the house and whatnot, but they typically want it to be a little nicer.
Modernized.
More modern. Of course, some houses have older kitchens and whatnot, and they can still paint the cabinets. You don't have to go through a major expense to remodel or anything like that, but just painting and things like that really make a difference.
It's just making it look pleasing to the eye.
Really does, yes.
It's really not about spending a ton of money on,
No.
like expensive flooring and stuff like that. It's just making it look nice.
Right, or going overboard. There's really no sense in putting a granite in a $100,000 house.
Right.
It just really doesn't make sense. That house would not need granite. If you put newer countertops in Formica, they would be just fine and look more modern and much nicer.
So if you want granite, that's okay.
Right.
But you have to realize that you're not so much doing it to raise the value of your home, just making it be more what you want it to be.
Absolutely.
So, okay, on the flip side of that, what are some of the worst things that someone can do to their house, and they think they're going to get a ton of value back,
yes.
but and then you come along and they're like, I thought that would
Sure.
I thought that would raise the value of my home more. It didn't. What are some of the things people do to their homes that really do not bring them, that value back?
Swimming pools are the biggest thing. In-ground pools. It's easy to spend $50,000 on an in-ground pool, make the really nice patios all around it, fencing and all that. And unfortunately, it just does not make much of a difference when it comes to your final sale price. We see really nice, exquisite-looking pools, but when you compare that house once it sells to other houses that are just as nice of house without a pool, there's very little, if any at all, difference in the actual sale price.
So they're putting $50,000 and $60,000 into that pool, which they're enjoying. So it's not
Absolutely.
like
Yep.
you're not enjoying it and it has a use. It's just it's not adding to the value of
You're
your
getting
home.
personal use out of it as opposed to value out of it.
Exactly.
And that's a personal choice. I mean, if you're going to use it, if your kids are going to use it,
Right.
it's well worth it.
Right.
If you're thinking that you're going to put a pool in to sell your house for more, that's not going to work.
Not a good
that's
idea.
Not going to work. No.
Okay.
The same thing is with a basement. A lot of people want to refinish their basement right before they sell it, and they don't get their value back out of it. Unfortunately, basements add some value, but not near as much as what it typically costs to remodel it.
Right.
Now, if you're going to remodel your basement because you want to use it and you have time to use it, it's going to be well worth it just on that aspect. But as far as for a final value,
Right.
you're probably not going to get that.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've talked to people about they have a huge unfinished basement under their home, 100% basement, and they're like, I want to finish all of this and double my square footage, and that
Right.
should bring a lot more money to how much my home is valued, and that's just not the case.
It's
Any
not.
below grade finished square footage is not valued the same as above grade.
That's correct. Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand what it's above grade. Just because it's a walkout basement does not make it above grade. You basically think of 4 walls of your house. If any of those walls are below ground by roughly 6 inches, we have to consider that as basement space.
Right.
For the most part, there might be some rare exceptions, but for the most part, it's basement space.
So it's great to want to finish your basement, but you do have to realize that it's not going to bring the same value as the above grade
That's correct.
square footage.
That's
and everybody loves having a finished basement.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's a wonderful thing, but as far as your job goes and how the industry, your job runs in the industry, you're not going to get the same value.
That's correct.
It's just how it is.
That's correct. And if you look at an appraisal report, you might see the living area. You have to understand the living area does not include the basement. If you look on the report where we spell out the different parts of the house, there is a separate area for basement and how much of the basement is finished. So it is considered. We do give it some value depending on the quality, the condition, and all that. It's just not part of the living area portion of it.
Right. So don't go spending a ton of money finishing your basement in hopes that you're going to regain some of that money back when you
Right.
sell it, or all of that money. You're just
Right.
not. You're
Yep.
not adding a lot.
If you're going to use it,
value.
it's probably worth it, but not for the resale value of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there what is something that, if there was one thing you could say, well, I wish more people knew this about
there you go.
my job.
Sure.
What would that be?
One thing is just understand that we come in totally independent. I don't want to say we don't care. We do care. We want to do our jobs well. We just don't care what the exact value is. We come in trying to determine what the value is. We don't go in with a idea ahead of time of what the value is going to be on the house. So we try to use the market to determine what the value is. And by doing that, how we do that is find 3 sales as similar to the subject home as we can find. Unfortunately, a lot of times in Franklin County, we can't find 3 sales that are just like this house because we have very few cookie cutter houses around here. Other parts of the country have huge tracts of neighborhoods where they're almost identical houses.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I saw one neighborhood in Alabama that was thousands of houses that were
Exactly
all but
the same.
identical.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would love to appraise her. That'd be so much easier. But so we don't have that. So we try to find houses as similar as we can find, and a lot of times they are going to be different than your house. We try to adjust for that, but people just understand. I would like for them to understand we are trying to do a good job for you, for both buyer and seller. We're trying to be totally independent. We're not trying to push it one way or another. We're just trying to be as totally independent as we can.
Right.
Just understand also that it's an opinion of value. We're not stating it's fact because it's not fact. It's an opinion of value, but we have to base our opinion on what we see in the market. I can't just look at a house and say, yeah, I think that house is worth such and such.
Right.
I have to be able to back that up in court if I need to explain why I came up to the value that I came up to.
Exactly. So you're a third party person. You're not owned by anybody.
No.
You're there to do a job. You have a process
Exactly.
that you have to stick to do that job. Sometimes people are happy with that report, and sometimes they're not.
Sometimes
but
they're not.
whether they're happy or not,
Yeah.
you have a job to do. You have a process, and that's just how it is.
We try to do the best job we can. So we're human too, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Galen, this
So-
has been great. It's been really informative. I hope a lot of people get to see this, because I think they'll really gain a lot of knowledge out of it.
Great.
I really appreciate you coming out today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to have your information in the comments section, so if you want to contact Galen about, an appraisal for your house,
Great.
home equity loan or something like that. Thank you so much for coming out today, Galen.
Thank you very much.
See you guys.